Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Have you ever felt like someone is coming into your life, but you have no idea who they are? No name, no face, no message, no sign that anyone else can see. And yet, deep inside your heart, something feels different. The things that once consumed your thoughts no longer have the same hold over you. The people you once could not stop thinking about are slowly fading from your mind. Old wounds are healing. Your connection with Allah feels stronger, and strangely enough, the future no longer scares you the way it once did. What if these changes are not random? What if Allah is preparing your heart for someone you have not met yet? Because here is something many people do not realize. When Allah is bringing your spouse closer, He often does not begin by changing your circumstances. He begins by changing you. Before He sends the right person, He removes the wrong ones. Before He answers the dua, He prepares the heart making it. Before He opens the door, He teaches you how to trust Him while it remains closed. And this is why some of the biggest signs that your spouse is getting closer cannot be seen with your eyes. They can only be felt by the heart. A heart that is becoming calmer, stronger, wiser, closer to Allah. Perhaps that is exactly what has been happening to you. Perhaps the people who left were never meant to stay. Perhaps the delays were never punishments. Perhaps the loneliness was never empty. Perhaps Allah has been preparing you for something far greater than you realize. And perhaps at this very moment, while you are wondering when your future spouse will arrive, Allah is already arranging every detail of that meeting. So stay with me until the end, because the final sign is so powerful that once you recognize it, you may never look at your waiting season the same way again. You may realize that Allah was not making you wait. He was preparing you for a blessing that was worth every moment of the journey. Allah clears the wrong people before sending the right one. One of the hardest realities to accept is that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Sometimes Allah removes people you wanted to keep, people you cared about deeply, people you prayed for, people you imagined a future with, people whose departure left your heart full of questions. At first, these losses feel painful, very painful. You wonder why Allah allowed the connection to end. You wonder why someone who seemed so right suddenly became distant. You wonder why something that looked so promising disappeared without warning. There may have been nights when you replayed old conversations in your mind, moments when you asked yourself what you could have done differently, moments when you begged Allah to bring things back to the way they were. And perhaps the most difficult part was not losing the person, it was losing the future you imagined with them. The plans, the hopes, the dreams, the life you thought would happen. But this is where many people misunderstand Allah's wisdom. What feels like a loss today may actually be protection. What feels like a closed door may actually be Allah rescuing you from a road that would have brought pain later. Because Allah sees what you cannot see. He knows the conversations that would have happened years from now. He knows the character hidden behind appearances. He knows the habits, intentions, and realities that your emotions could not recognize. While you were looking at the present, Allah was looking at your future. While you were seeing what you wanted, Allah was seeing what you needed. And because Allah loves you more than you love yourself, He sometimes removes what your heart wants to protect, what your soul actually needs. Think about how many things in your life once felt devastating, but later made sense. How many disappointments eventually became blessings. How many closed doors protected you from walking into places where your peace would have been destroyed. The same may be true for the people who left. Years later, many people look back and realize something astonishing. The people they cried over were often the very people who would have distracted them from what Allah truly had planned. The relationship they begged Allah to save was the relationship Allah was saving them from. Subhanallah. Sometimes Allah removes someone because they would have delayed your growth. Sometimes He removes someone because they would have damaged your peace. Sometimes He removes someone because they were only meant to teach you a lesson, not stay for a lifetime. And sometimes Allah removes the wrong people because the right person is already written for your future. A person whose presence will bring tranquility instead of confusion. A person who will help you grow closer to Allah instead of further away. A person who will be a blessing to your faith your heart, and your life. But before that person arrives, Allah often clears what does not belong, because there is no room for what Allah intends to send until what was never meant to stay has been removed. So if someone has left your life and your heart is still trying to understand why, remember this: not every ending is a punishment. Not every loss is a rejection. Not every closed door means Allah has forgotten you. Sometimes the door closes because Allah sees a better one ahead. Sometimes the pain you are feeling today is actually Allah protecting your tomorrow. And one day, when Allah's plan becomes clear, you may thank Him for the very goodbye that once broke your heart. Your heart stops chasing what Allah never wrote for you. One of the most beautiful signs that Allah is preparing your heart for something better is that you slowly stop chasing what was never meant for you. Not because you stopped caring, not because you became cold, not because you gave up on love, but because Allah begins teaching your heart a deeper kind of trust. For a long time, many people live in a constant state of chasing attention, chasing approval, chasing messages, chasing signs, chasing people who keep giving mixed signals. They spend months, sometimes years, trying to force something to happen, trying to make someone choose them, trying to convince someone of their worth, trying to keep alive a connection that Allah never intended to last. And without realizing it, this constant chasing steals their peace. Every delayed reply affects their mood. Every change in someone's behavior affects their emotions. Every small disappointment feels bigger than it should, because when your heart becomes attached to something that is uncertain, your peace becomes uncertain too. But when Allah begins preparing you for your future spouse, something starts changing inside you. The obsession begins fading. The constant overthinking becomes quieter. The need for answers becomes weaker. The need to control every outcome slowly disappears. You start realizing that what Allah has written for you does not need to be forced. You begin understanding that if Allah wants something to enter your life, no person can stop it. And if Allah does not want something for you, no amount of chasing can make it stay. This realization feels incredibly freeing, because suddenly you are no longer carrying the weight of trying to control everything. You stop exhausting yourself trying to make people see your value. You stop begging for the attention that should be given freely. You stop trying to earn a place in the heart of someone who is unwilling to make room for you. And perhaps for the first time in a long time, you begin choosing your own peace. You begin understanding that your worth was never dependent on who chooses you. Your worth was given to you by Allah long before anyone entered your life. You do not become valuable when someone loves you. You were valuable the day Allah created you. You do not become important when someone notices you. You were important the moment Allah breathed life into you. Subhanallah. How much pain would disappear if people truly understood this? How many tears would never be cried? How many sleepless nights would never happen? Because so much suffering comes from trying to hold on to things that Allah is asking us to release. And sometimes the reason Allah delays your future spouse is because He is first teaching your heart this lesson. He is teaching you that love should never become your Lord. He is teaching you that another person should never have the power to control your happiness. He is teaching you that your security must come from Him first. Because when your heart depends completely on people, every disappointment breaks you. But when your heart depends on Allah, disappointment becomes easier to survive. You begin trusting Him more than your fears. You begin trusting Him more than your timeline. You begin trusting Him more than your emotions. And eventually something remarkable happens. You stop asking, "Why haven't I found the right person yet?" And you begin asking, "What is Allah teaching me while I wait?" That question changes everything, because now your focus is no longer on what you lack. Your focus shifts toward what Allah is building inside you. Your relationship with Allah becomes stronger. Your patience becomes deeper. Your character becomes better. Your heart becomes calmer. And without realizing it, you become the kind of person who is truly ready for a healthy marriage. The beautiful thing is that when you stop chasing what Allah never wrote for you, you create space for what He did write for you. You stop running after temporary things and begin walking toward Allah's plan, a plan that is far wiser than your own, a plan that sees years ahead while you only see today. A plan that knows exactly who belongs in your life and exactly when they should arrive. So if you feel yourself letting go of unhealthy attachments, if you feel less desperate than before, if you feel more at peace with uncertainty, do not be afraid. You are not losing hope. You are gaining trust. You are not becoming indifferent. You are becoming stronger. And perhaps this change is one of the clearest signs that Allah is preparing your heart for a love that will not need to be chased, a love that will arrive through His wisdom, His timing, and His perfect plan. The pain of the past begins leaving your soul. One of the most beautiful signs that Allah is preparing your heart for a new chapter is that the pain of the past slowly begins losing its power over you. Not all at once, not in a single day, not through one conversation, but little by little, quietly, gently, in ways you may not even notice at first. For a long time, many people carry wounds they never speak about, wounds hidden behind smiles, wounds hidden behind strength, wounds hidden behind the words, "I'm okay." But Allah knows. Allah knows every tear that fell when nobody was watching. Allah knows every prayer whispered through a broken heart. Allah knows every night you lay awake replaying memories you wished you could forget. He knows the disappointment, the rejection, the betrayal, the unanswered questions, the hopes that collapsed, the promises that were never fulfilled, the people who walked away without explaining why, the people who made you feel unworthy, the people who made you question your value. And perhaps the hardest part was not what happened. Perhaps the hardest part was how long you carried it afterward. Because emotional pain is different. A physical wound eventually heals, but wounds of the heart can stay hidden for years. Sometimes people leave your life, but they continue living inside your thoughts. Sometimes the relationship ends, but the pain remains. Sometimes the person is gone, but the memories still control your emotions. And without realizing it, the past continues stealing joy from the present. This is why healing is such a beautiful gift from Allah. Because healing does not mean the past never happened. Healing means the past no longer controls who you are becoming. When Allah begins preparing your heart for your future spouse, He often starts removing the weight of old pain. The memories that once made you cry begin hurting less. The names that once made your chest feel heavy begin losing their power. The people who once occupied your thoughts every day begin appearing less and less, not because you forced yourself to forget them, but because Allah is making space for something new. Think about this. How can a heart fully receive a blessing if it is still holding tightly to old wounds? How can a person embrace a beautiful future while remaining trapped inside yesterday? Sometimes Allah delays certain blessings because He first wants to heal the heart that will receive them. Because a wounded heart often sees everything through fear. Fear of being hurt again. Fear of being abandoned again. Fear of trusting again. Fear of loving again. And these fears can quietly damage even the most beautiful opportunities. But when healing begins, something changes. You stop viewing every new person through the lens of old pain. You stop assuming that everyone will hurt you. You stop expecting every story to end the same way. And for the first time in a long time, hope starts returning to your heart. Not hope in people, hope in Allah. You begin realizing that what happened to you was not the end of your story. It was only one chapter, a painful chapter, a difficult chapter, but not the final chapter. Subhanallah. Many people think healing comes from time alone, but time by itself heals very little. There are people carrying the same pain after 10 years, and there are people who find peace after 1 year. The difference is not time. The difference is Allah. True healing happens when Allah sends peace into a place that once carried pain. True healing happens when Allah replaces confusion with understanding. True healing happens when Allah replaces bitterness with acceptance. True healing happens when Allah helps you see wisdom where you once saw only loss. And one of the greatest signs of this healing is forgiveness. not because the people who hurt you deserve it, but because your heart deserves peace. You stop carrying the burden of anger. You stop carrying the burden of resentment. You stop carrying the burden of constantly looking back. And suddenly, your soul feels lighter. You breathe easier. You smile more. You trust Allah more, because you finally understand something powerful. The people who hurt you were never stronger than Allah's plan for you. The disappointments you experienced were never greater than Allah's mercy, and the pain you survived was never bigger than Allah's ability to heal you. Perhaps right now, Allah is healing wounds you have carried for years. Perhaps He is removing sadness you thought would stay forever. Perhaps He is teaching your heart how to feel safe again. And perhaps this healing is happening because Allah knows that the person He has written for you deserves to meet the version of you that has found peace. Not perfection, not flawlessness, but peace. A heart that no longer lives in yesterday. A heart that no longer belongs to old memories. A heart that is finally free enough to embrace what Allah has prepared next. Because sometimes the greatest sign that Allah is bringing your spouse closer is not that someone new enters your life. It is that the people from your past finally stop controlling your heart. And when that happens, you realize something beautiful. Allah was not only preparing your future, He was healing your soul. Allah becomes the Ev your heart needs most. One of the most beautiful signs that Allah is bringing your spouse closer is that your heart begins needing Allah more than it needs anyone else. This change is quiet. It does not happen overnight. It is not something most people notice immediately, but when it begins, it changes everything. For a long time, many people believe that the thing missing from their life is another person. They tell themselves, if I could just find the right spouse, everything would feel complete. If I could just find someone who understands me, my loneliness would disappear. If I could just find the person Allah has written for me, then I would finally feel at peace. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom, often teaches a deeper lesson before that person arrives. He teaches you that peace does not come from people. Peace comes from Him, because no human being was created to carry the weight of your entire heart. No human being can fill every empty place inside you. No human being can heal every wound. No human being can remove every fear. And no human being can give you the security that only Allah can provide. The problem is that many people discover this lesson too late. They place impossible expectations on other people. They expect another person to heal all their pain. They expect another person to remove all their loneliness. They expect another person to make them feel complete. And when that person cannot carry such a heavy burden, disappointment follows. But when Allah begins preparing your heart, He gently redirects your love back to its rightful place, toward Him. You begin turning to Allah first instead of people. When your heart feels heavy, you speak to Allah. When you feel lonely, you speak to Allah. When you feel confused, you speak to Allah. When your future feels uncertain, you speak to Allah. And slowly, something extraordinary begins happening. The connection you once searched for in people starts growing between you and your Creator. Your prayers become different. You no longer pray only because you need something. You begin praying because you miss speaking to Allah. Your du'as become more sincere, more personal, more emotional. You stop reciting words with your tongue alone. You begin speaking from the depths of your heart. You tell Allah things you have never told anyone else. You share fears that nobody knows. You share dreams that nobody understands. You cry before Him in moments when the entire world believes you are strong. And subhanallah, there is something beautiful about knowing that Allah listens to every word. People become tired. People become distracted. People forget. People leave. But Allah never leaves. Allah never becomes tired of hearing your voice. Allah never grows impatient with your pain. Allah never turns away when you call upon Him. The more you realize this, the more your heart begins finding comfort in His presence. And then something amazing happens. The desperation begins disappearing. The feeling that you cannot survive without another person starts fading. The fear that your happiness depends on marriage starts losing its power. Not because you no longer want marriage, not because you no longer desire companionship, but because your heart finally understands something important. Marriage is a blessing, but Allah is the source of every blessing. A spouse can support you, but only Allah can sustain you. A spouse can love you, but only Allah's love is perfect. A spouse can comfort you, but only Allah can bring complete peace to your soul. And when this understanding settles deep into your heart, you become stronger than before. You stop seeing marriage as a rescue mission. You stop seeing another person as the answer to all your problems. You stop expecting someone else to carry burdens that belong only to Allah. Instead, you begin approaching marriage from a place of peace rather than desperation, from a place of trust rather than fear, from a place of gratitude rather than emptiness. This is why many scholars say that one of the greatest preparations for marriage is strengthening your relationship with Allah, because the healthier your connection with Allah becomes, the healthier your future marriage can become. A heart connected to Allah is less likely to become emotionally dependent on people. A heart connected to Allah is less likely to break when difficulties arise. A heart connected to Allah knows where to turn during hardship, and every successful marriage will eventually face hardship. There will be misunderstandings. There will be tests. There will be moments when emotions are not enough. In those moments, what keeps a marriage strong is not simply love. It is two hearts that are connected to Allah. Perhaps this is why Allah sometimes delays marriage. Not because He is denying you, not because He has forgotten you, but because He is building something more valuable first. He is teaching your heart where true peace comes from. He is teaching your heart who deserves its greatest love. He is teaching your heart to depend on the one who never disappoints. And perhaps right now, while you are praying for your future spouse, Allah is doing something even more beautiful. Perhaps He is making you fall in love with Him first, because the strongest marriages are often built by people who discovered that Allah was enough before they found each other. And when Allah becomes the love your heart needs most, something remarkable happens. You stop feeling incomplete. You stop feeling abandoned. You stop feeling forgotten, because you realize that even while you are waiting for your spouse, you were never alone. Allah was with you the entire time, guiding you, protecting you, healing you, preparing you, and leading you toward the future He has already written with perfect wisdom. Sometimes the greatest sign that Allah is bringing your spouse closer is not that another person enters your life. It is that Allah Himself becomes closer to your heart than ever before. And that closeness is a gift more valuable than anything this world can offer. You no longer fear the delay because you trust the destination. One of the strongest signs that Allah is preparing your heart for your future spouse is that your relationship with waiting begins to change. At first, waiting feels painful, very painful. You watch time pass. You watch people around you get married. You watch friends begin new chapters. You attend weddings. You hear engagement announcements. You see happy couples everywhere. And sometimes, without meaning to, your heart quietly asks, "Ya Allah, when will it be my turn?" You continue making dua. You continue hoping, you continue trusting, but some days feel harder than others. Some nights feel longer than others. And if we are honest, there are moments when the delay becomes difficult to understand. Moments when you wonder why something that seems so simple feels so far away. Moments when your heart grows tired of waiting. Moments when Shaitan whispers thoughts like, maybe it will never happen. Maybe your dua is not being heard. Maybe Allah has forgotten about you. But that is exactly where one of the most important transformations begins. Because when Allah starts preparing your heart, He slowly replaces fear with trust. He teaches you something that cannot be learned any other way. He teaches you to trust Him even when you do not have answers. Anyone can trust Allah when everything is going according to plan. Anyone can trust Allah when doors are opening. Anyone can trust Allah when blessings are arriving quickly. But trusting Allah while waiting, trusting Allah while the future is unclear, trusting Allah while your prayers remain unanswered, that is a different level of faith. And often, That is the faith Allah is building inside you. You begin realizing that every delay in your life has carried wisdom. When you look back, you see it, the opportunities you once begged for that would have hurt you, the people you once wanted that would have broken your peace, the doors you cried over that later revealed themselves as protection. Subhanallah. How many times has Allah already proven that His timing is better than yours? How many times did something not happen when you wanted it to happen, only for you to later thank Allah that it didn't? This realization changes your perspective. You begin understanding that Allah's delays are not empty. Allah is never inactive. Allah is never unaware. Allah is never late. While you are waiting, Allah is working. While you are confused, Allah is arranging. While you are questioning, Allah is preparing. Perhaps He is preparing your future spouse. Perhaps He is preparing you. Perhaps He is protecting both of you from meeting too soon. Because not every blessing becomes beautiful when it arrives early. Even the most beautiful flower can be damaged if it blooms before its season. Even the sweetest fruit becomes bitter when picked too soon. And sometimes, what you call delay is actually protection from receiving something before you are ready for it. Think about that. Perhaps if you had met your future spouse 3 years ago, neither of you would have been ready. Perhaps there were lessons you needed to learn first. Perhaps there was healing that needed to happen first. Perhaps there was growth that Allah knew was necessary before your paths could cross. Because Allah does not simply care about giving you what you want. He cares about giving it to you at the right time, a time when it can become a blessing rather than a test, a time when it can bring peace rather than confusion, a time when it can strengthen your faith rather than weaken it. And as this understanding grows, something beautiful happens. You stop measuring your life against other people's timelines. You stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10. You stop asking why everyone else seems ahead, because you begin realizing that Allah is writing a different story for every person. Some people receive certain blessings early, some receive them later. Some receive things you do not have. Some will never receive things you already possess. And Allah distributes His blessings according to perfect wisdom. The comparison starts fading. The pressure starts fading. The panic starts fading. And in its place comes something much more valuable. Contentment. You start feeling content even while waiting, not because you have stopped hoping, but because you have started trusting. You trust that Allah knows exactly where your future spouse is right now. You trust that Allah knows exactly what is happening in their life. You trust that Allah knows the perfect moment for your stories to meet. You trust that nothing written for you can ever be stolen by someone else. You trust that no delay can cancel what Allah has already decreed. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all is this: your happiness stops depending on arrival. Many people postpone their happiness. They tell themselves, I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I meet the right person. I'll be happy when my life finally changes. But Allah teaches a different lesson. He teaches you how to find peace before the blessing arrives. Because if your heart cannot find peace while waiting, it may struggle to protect that peace after receiving what it wants. So Allah teaches you patience. Allah teaches you gratitude. Allah teaches you surrender. Allah teaches you reliance upon Him. And these lessons become treasures that stay with you long after the waiting season ends. One day, insha'Allah, your spouse may enter your life. One day the dua may be answered. One day the waiting may finally end. But when you look back, you may realize something surprising. The waiting season was not wasted. It was one of the most important chapters of your life. Because during that season, Allah was not simply preparing your future, He was preparing your heart. And perhaps one of the clearest signs that Allah is bringing your spouse closer is that you no longer fear the delay. You no longer panic about the timeline. You no longer feel forgotten. Instead, deep inside your heart, there is a quiet certainty, a certainty that Allah has never failed you before, a certainty that His plan is unfolding even when you cannot see it, a certainty that the destination is beautiful enough to justify every moment of waiting. And because you trust the one guiding the journey, you no longer fear how long the road may be. Allah begins preparing you for the person already written for you, One of the most beautiful signs that Allah is bringing your spouse closer is that He begins changing you before He changes your situation. Many people spend years asking Allah for the right person. They make dua for a righteous husband. They make dua for a righteous wife. They ask Allah for companionship, for love, for understanding, for a peaceful marriage. And there is nothing wrong with that. These are beautiful duas. But while you are asking Allah to prepare someone for you, Allah may already be preparing you for someone. This is something many people overlook. They focus completely on finding the right person, but Allah focuses on helping them become the right person. Because marriage is not simply about receiving a blessing. Marriage is also a responsibility, a trust, a journey that requires patience, wisdom, sacrifice, mercy, and emotional maturity. And if Allah loves you, He will prepare you before He gives it to you. Think about every great blessing Allah gives. Before success comes growth. Before leadership comes responsibility. Before provision comes effort. And before a healthy marriage often comes preparation. Because the person you are today may not be the same person Allah wants you to be when you meet your future spouse. Perhaps there are habits that need to change. Perhaps there are wounds that need to heal. Perhaps there are lessons you still need to learn. Perhaps there are parts of your character that Allah is refining. And this preparation is happening even if you cannot see it. Subhanallah. Many people believe they are simply waiting for marriage. But in reality, Allah is using this waiting season to transform them. You become more patient than before. Life teaches you how to wait, how to trust, how to remain hopeful even when things move slowly. And patience is one of the most important qualities in marriage. You become more emotionally mature. The things that once upset you easily no longer have the same power. You begin understanding people better. You become slower to judge, quicker to forgive, more willing to listen, and these qualities become priceless inside a marriage. You become more responsible. You start thinking beyond your own needs, beyond your own desires, beyond your own comfort, because marriage is not built on selfishness. Marriage thrives when two people learn how to care for one another, and Allah begins teaching those lessons long before the wedding day arrives. Perhaps He is teaching you how to communicate, how to be patient during disagreements, how to control your anger, how to show kindness when emotions are high, how to remain calm during difficult moments. Because one day, these lessons may protect your future marriage, and what feels like an ordinary life lesson today may become one of the greatest gifts Allah gives you tomorrow. The beautiful thing is that Allah does not only prepare your actions, He prepares your heart. He begins removing arrogance, removing unhealthy attachments, removing unrealistic expectations, removing the fantasies that could later destroy real happiness. Because many people fall in love with unrealistic expectations rather than reality. They expect perfection. They expect someone who never makes mistakes, someone who always understands, someone who always says the right thing. But Allah slowly teaches you that real love is not perfection. Real love is mercy. Real love is patience. Real love is choosing each other even on difficult days. And these lessons cannot be learned overnight. They are learned through life, through tests, through delays, through growth, through trusting Allah when you do not understand His plan. And perhaps one of the most beautiful thoughts is this: while Allah is preparing you, He may also be preparing your future spouse. Right now, somewhere in this world, there may be a person making dua for a spouse they have never met, a person asking Allah for guidance, a person asking Allah for patience, a person asking Allah to protect their future marriage, a person who has no idea that one day your stories will meet. Subhanallah, just imagine that. You may not know their name, you may not know where they live, you may not know what they look like. But Allah knows. Allah knows every detail. Allah knows where they are today. Allah knows what they are struggling with. Allah knows what they are learning. Allah knows how their heart is growing. And while you are worrying about when you will meet them, Allah is managing every detail of both journeys. This is why trusting Allah becomes so important. Because your future spouse is not a random event. They are part of a plan Allah wrote long before you were born. A plan designed with perfect knowledge, perfect wisdom, perfect timing, and sometimes the reason Allah delays the meeting is because both hearts are still being prepared, not punished. Prepared, not forgotten. Prepared, not abandoned. Prepared because Allah knows exactly who you must become before you step into the next chapter of your life. And one day when the timing is right, you may look back and realize that every lesson mattered, every hardship mattered, every delay mattered, every tear mattered, every prayer mattered, because all of it was shaping you into the person you needed to become, the person capable of appreciating the blessing when it finally arrived, the person capable of protecting the blessing once it arrived, the person capable of building a marriage that brings peace rather than pain. Perhaps this is why Allah has not rushed your story, because He is not simply preparing a wedding, He is preparing two hearts, two lives, two futures. And when Allah prepares something, He prepares it with wisdom far beyond what we can imagine. So if you feel yourself growing, if you feel yourself changing, if you feel yourself becoming stronger, wiser, more patient, and more connected to Allah, do not overlook it. These changes are not happening by accident. Allah may be preparing you for the person He already wrote for you long ago. And sometimes, the greatest sign that your spouse is getting closer is that you are becoming the person they will need when they finally arrive. A deep peace appears when Allah is bringing your spouse closer. Perhaps the most beautiful sign of all is not a dream, not a message, not a proposal, not a sudden meeting, not even a sign that other people can see. Perhaps the most beautiful sign is something that happens quietly inside your heart. A deep peace, a peace that cannot be explained by your circumstances, a peace that arrives before the blessing itself arrives, a peace that Allah places inside your heart when He wants you to know that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. For a long time, your heart may have lived in uncertainty. You worried about the future. You worried about marriage. You worried about whether you would ever meet the right person. You worried about whether your du'as would be answered. You worried about how your story would unfold. Some days you felt hopeful. Other days you felt discouraged. Some days you trusted completely. Other days fear crept back into your heart. This is normal. Every human being experiences moments of uncertainty. Even the strongest believers experience periods where they struggle to understand Allah's timing. But then something starts changing, not around you, inside you. The fear slowly becomes quieter. The anxiety slowly loses its grip. The constant need for answers begins fading, and without realizing it, your heart starts resting in Allah's plan. Subhanallah. This peace is a gift, because true peace does not come when everything makes sense. True peace comes when you trust Allah, even when things do not make sense. Anyone can feel calm when they know exactly what is happening. Anyone can feel secure when they can see the future. But the believer learns how to feel peace while walking through uncertainty. That kind of peace can only come from Allah, and often it appears after a long season of growth, after the healing, after the waiting, after the tears, after the lessons, after the prayers made in the middle of the night, after the moments when nobody understood what you were carrying. Allah sees all of it, every tear, every disappointment, every lonely night, every silent dua, every moment you chose to trust Him when your heart wanted answers. And because Allah sees all of it, He sometimes rewards that trust with peace before He rewards it with the blessing itself. Think about how beautiful that is. Before Allah changes your situation, He changes your heart. Before He sends the answer, He sends tranquility. Before He opens the door, He calms the soul that has been standing in front of it. Because Allah knows something we often forget. The greatest blessing is not marriage. The greatest blessing is peace. A person can be married and still feel restless. A person can have everything they once prayed for and still feel empty. But when Allah gives peace to the heart, everything changes. And this is why this sign is so powerful. You begin noticing that your heart no longer panics the way it used to. You no longer feel rushed. You no longer feel as though life is leaving you behind. You no longer feel desperate to make something happen. Instead, there is a quiet confidence growing inside you. Not confidence in people, not confidence in circumstances, confidence in Allah. You begin believing that Allah knows exactly where your future spouse is. You begin believing that Allah knows exactly when your paths will cross. You begin believing that Allah has not forgotten a single dua you have ever made, because Allah never forgets. Years may pass, seasons may change, people may come and go, but Allah never forgets a sincere prayer. There may be duas you made years ago that Allah is still preparing to answer in ways you cannot yet imagine, and when this certainty enters your heart, something remarkable happens. You stop living in constant anticipation. You stop obsessing over signs. You stop checking every situation for clues. You stop trying to force the future to reveal itself, because you finally understand that your job is not to control the future. Your job is to trust the one who controls it. And that trust creates peace, a peace that remains even when you do not know what tomorrow will bring. A peace that remains even when your timeline looks different from everyone else's. A peace that remains even when you are still waiting. And perhaps that peace itself is one of Allah's greatest signs. Because when Allah is preparing something beautiful for your life, He often prepares your heart first. He teaches your heart how to rest, how to trust, how to surrender, how to remain hopeful without becoming desperate, how to remain patient without becoming discouraged, how to remain faithful without needing constant reassurance. And then one day, when the blessing finally arrives, you realize something incredible. The greatest miracle was not only the person Allah brought into your life. The greatest miracle was the person Allah helped you become while you waited. The patient person, the trusting person, the healed person, the peaceful person, the person whose heart learned how to depend upon Allah above all else, because that version of you is stronger than before, wiser than before, closer to Allah than before. And perhaps that is why this final sign is so beautiful. When Allah is bringing your spouse closer, He does not only prepare the future, He prepares your heart to receive it. And one of the clearest signs of that preparation is a deep peace that settles inside your soul. A peace that whispers, Allah is in control. Allah knows. Allah sees. Allah has not forgotten you. And what He has written for you is still making its way toward your life. So if your heart has started feeling calmer lately, if your fears have become quieter, if your trust in Allah has become stronger, do not ignore it. Because sometimes, before Allah sends the blessing you have been praying for, He sends something even more precious, the certainty that He is already taking care of it. And when that certainty fills your heart, you discover a peace that no delay can steal and no fear can destroy. A peace that comes from knowing that the one writing your story is Allah Himself. And there is no safer place for your future to be. If there is one thing I hope you remember from this reminder, it is this: Allah is never late, not with your provision, not with your healing, not with your happiness, and not with the person He has written for you. Right now, there may be moments when you feel forgotten, moments when the waiting feels heavy, moments when your heart wonders how much longer this journey will be. But never forget that while you are waiting, Allah is working. While you are wondering, Allah is arranging. While you are praying, Allah is preparing you, preparing your future, preparing the person who may one day walk beside you. And every lesson you have lived through was never meaningless. Every disappointment taught you something. Every heartbreak strengthened you. Every delay refined you. Every tear brought you closer to Allah. And every sincere dua was heard by the one who never ignores a single call from His servants. Perhaps the person you are praying for already exists. Perhaps they are making dua tonight without knowing your name. Perhaps Allah is guiding both of your hearts through separate journeys so they can meet at the exact moment written by His wisdom. Subhanallah. How beautiful is it to know that your future is not being decided by chance. It is being written by Allah, the most wise, the most merciful, the one who knows every desire hidden inside your heart. So stop carrying the burden of tomorrow. Leave tomorrow with Allah. Stop trying to force what Allah is already arranging. Stop fearing what Allah has already planned. And stop believing that a delay means a denial, because what Allah has written for you will never miss you. Not by a day, not by an hour, not by a single moment. And when the time finally comes, you will understand why Allah made you wait. You will understand why certain people had to leave, why certain doors had to close, why certain prayers seemed delayed, why certain lessons had to be learned. And on that day, you may look back at this season of waiting and realize that Allah was never withholding something from you. He was preparing something for you, something better than your expectations, something wiser than your plans, something that arrived exactly when your heart was ready to receive it. So keep making dua, keep improving yourself, keep trusting your Lord, keep walking toward Allah, because the closer you grow to Him, the closer you grow to every blessing He has written for you. May Allah fill your heart with peace. May Allah replace your worries with certainty. May Allah heal every wound that still hurts in silence. May Allah grant you a righteous spouse who becomes a source of tranquility, faith, mercy and goodness in this life and the next. And may Allah make your waiting season a means of drawing closer to Him rather than drifting away from Him. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. If this reminder touched your heart, then remember to like this video, subscribe to Dinapedia, and share this reminder with someone who may need hope today. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.